Michael, we're live and you may begin whenever you're ready.
Awesome. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for being a little patient. We're getting a couple minutes late start here, but I'm going to call to order tonight's July 19th full design review board meeting. I am looking for a motion I established quorum and I'm looking to approve tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, the motion passes. I don't believe, staff, do we have any previous approval for meeting minutes? Or do we?
Yes, we do. So that would be June 28th, June 28th's meeting minutes and July 12th meeting minutes.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve June 28th and July 12th meeting minutes?
So moved.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes. All right, I'm looking for any general member comments that are not in relation to any applications we have tonight. I don't think we had anybody register. I would like to first off just recognize that we have a couple new members that are joining our board tonight for the first time. We have John and Sarah, and I don't know if Elena has joined yet or not, but we have a third new one that may or may not join. So we have getting closer to our full board of 9. We're currently at 8, so hopefully we will be there soon. But I appreciate you guys volunteering and joining this exciting opportunity we have. So we'll jump in tonight. We have an appeal to start off. It is for 11563 Hemingway Drive. Is the appellant here for?
Yes, Marilee is here. We're unmuting her.
Great. So Marilee, as the appellant, you have the opportunity to prove whether a design guideline was misapplied or whether there is new information available. This was a full design review board case, so all the members can vote on whether to accept the appeal or not and take part in the discussion. And then we will decide if we do accept the appeal, then we will hear the case over de novo, which basically means starting from anew. So go ahead and take it away.
I have a question. I sent in basically a 5-page appeal with a lot of pictures in it and a few attachments. Has anyone who is here tonight ever looked at it?
Yes, ma'am. That is what we are here to do.
Well, you haven't looked at it before tonight? That's what I'm saying. So
No, we were sent it beforehand. Yes, ma'am.
So can I presume, would it be presumptuous of me to assume that everybody who is judging tonight from the DRB full panel has read it? Or do I need to go through it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I definitely think you should walk us through what your new information is or what your misapplied guideline is feeling. Right. So you can high level it or you can go as detailed as you want. So it's up to you.
Fine. Okay, so you're aware that the proposal of my neighbor is basically to tear down their current deck, to build a new deck in this place, which is 4 inches taller, which is not mentioned in the final approval, and to build on one side of their new deck, which will be essentially the same size as their old deck, but 3 inches longer, 3 feet longer. They're going to build, why don't I just go through it since I'm allowed to. So this is page 1, this is page 2. Okay, so I guess I should really start by referencing that there are the design review board, guidelines for clusters for screen porches. And it says that the impact on neighbors shall be taken into account. If you look at the website for the Reston Association, you will see that some of the impacts of the neighbors that should be taken into account are the view, what happens to the person's view, what happens to the sunlight, what happens to privacy. So those are three things mentioned on the Reston website, which say that which have to be taken into account and which are described as, quote, primary concerns. All right. So, thank you for doing that. So I appreciate that you're bringing that up. Then that was the first attachment one. Attachment two is the website for Reston Association. So if you're trying to, do you want me to find that, or it's pretty, yeah, I think it's the website is page 13. Thank you. I don't know how to do this. If you go to page 13, and you'll read that if you go down further on that page, actually, please, am I allowed to manipulate this? Yeah, okay. So the effect on neighboring properties, sunlight, view, and privacy are primary considerations. So it's hard to find specifics on what is considered effect on neighboring properties or impact on neighboring properties, but they exist, and those are the three. The other thing I would like to point out, since we're in the attachments, and I really appreciate it, is that there in none of the materials that I have seen or that I have, when I listened to the May 17th meeting and I recorded it, there has been no mention of the height of this proposed screen porch. You'll notice that the decision, I presume you've all read the decision that was from the last May 17th meeting. I think it was May 25th when the notice was sent out. There's always a reference to height, and there's a reference to length, and they're approximate, but there's no reference to how tall the screen porch is going to be. And if you look at photograph number, if you look at page 15, you will see that from my porch looking on to the to my neighbor's porch, to my neighbor's deck. And the architectural drawings show that the height of the screen porch, according to the architectural drawings, will be very close to the bottom edge of the second story windows of my neighbor's house. So I ask you to look at the architectural drawings, 16 and 17. And you will see, try 17, let's try 16 again. That's all right. Okay, you will see, you'll see, look on the left side because that really is my side. You will see that the roof line of the proposed screen porch is very close to the bottom edge of the second story window of the building next door of the Klipstein house. I have no idea because I cannot go on their porch. And I thought about going over to people with the same models houses and asking if I could bring over a tall ladder and my measuring tape and try to, measure from the deck all the way up to the second story window. So I'd have an idea of height, but I didn't do that. So I estimated that's approximately 14 feet. I wondered if there's anybody here who's better at estimating, because this is brand new to me, or have the Klipsteins ever provided you an approximate height of the screen porch? Because I have used 14 feet throughout my document, since I have no better measurement. So that's my question. Does anybody know whether the Klipsteins have provided an approximate
Can I
number?
say
Are they
something
here? Yes.
If you look at that elevation, it actually has the elevation points marked on the right-hand side of that elevation. And it shows what the height above the ground is. And it looks like about a 9'2" difference between the floor and the next roof top level. So it's
Are you
not as
saying
great
that
as you think it is.
you think that's going to be a 9-foot tall building?
Yeah, the floor is at 100 feet, 100 feet, and the
Mhm.
top of the joist of the second floor is 109.2 feet. So you got 9'2".
Yeah, Steph,
Okay.
can you go to slide 16, Steph?
Would you
So
please?
if you look at here, Marilee, so
Yeah.
what John is referencing is here on the right-hand side. And you can see, so essentially to the middle line of the roof is about 9 feet
Actually,
too.
I can't see the right
peak,
side because your pictures are in the way. So could you, yes, thank you for moving it.
the peak of the hip roof is probably, if I had to guesstimate, about 10 feet, 2 inches, 10
So
feet,
it
4
only,
inches.
you're saying I'd be only facing a 10-foot wall, right?
Well, the wall itself is going to be shorter. So the wall itself is only 8 feet. So they're calling out above deck is 100 feet, 108 minus 100. So you're looking at 8 feet tall, and then the top of the hip is going to be probably approximately 2 feet tall. So it's going to be a total feet of, let's say, just 12 feet total, maximum, and that's probably an aggressive. It's probably going to be a little less than that.
So you think it, okay, so I'm going to put you on, I'm going to say this is now a determination by the RA Association that they're inserting the figure. They have never gotten the figure from the Clipsteins, but you all are assuming that you all are stating that it will be 12 feet tall maximum, right? That's your architectural opinion, that it's going to be 12 feet tall. Are you going to ask the Clipsteins for a figure or not?
I'm sorry,
They provided this figure.
Huh? So
I'm sorry.
that's what you're saying. That's what the figure they provided is 12 feet?
Yeah, correct. It's a little less than 12 feet, but yeah.
I mean, at the top of the roof, it's going to be what?
Yeah, it's going to be a little less than 12. It's going to be less than 12 feet. I can guarantee you that.
So what you're
I'm
Okay.
sorry,
Well,
but procedurally, this is your opportunity to address new information and address the DRB, not to ask questions of the DRB. So
Okay.
if you want to continue with your appeal, they
I
may
do want
ask
to
you
continue.
questions.
Yes, I will. Okay. So what you're saying is I should say it's going to be a 10-foot wall directly in front of me with another 2 feet above to about 12 feet tall is the maximum height that will be in front of my house. That's what, thank you. So I'm going to change 14 to 12. So I will now go forward with my appeal. Thank you. I truly appreciate this. Okay. So can we go back to 1 again? Page 1. All right. Okay, so I've referenced that the new information is that they did not take into account the impact on the neighboring party. They did not specifically take into the impact of view, of privacy, and of sunlight, and also that they did not provide a height, but now I know that the 14 feet that I estimated, it should be 12. Thank you, I appreciate it. So now we're going to go down to what these impacts are and compare them to the existing, there is an existing screen porch that has been approved in the neighborhood, and it is the Clipstein, the Leicester screened porch. And you can see a picture of the Leicester screened porch. And the family that is most impacted by this screen porch is the Richards family. And if you go down further, you will see the distance between the Leicester porch and the Richards porch is quite large, but there's only 10 feet of distance between my house, my deck, and the Clipstein deck, where they're going to build the screen porch, which, okay. So you'll notice that there are even, please go back to picture 3, you will notice that there's a much bigger distance between the deck on the on the Richards house isn't even at the edge of the house. It's inset to the left of the property. And there's, as I said, there's screening mature trees and all kinds of things. So there's a big distance, much further apart. It's not going to be 10 feet apart. All right, now to go on to the impact on the view. If you go down further on the page, you will see that if I look west, this is directly what I see. I see the Clipstein's 2 privacy screens, and I see, as you know, into the west. What my new view to the west will be a 10-foot, but to reaching 12-foot tall wall that will be solidly across the whole length of my deck, because the idea is to extend the length of the Clipstein deck another 3 feet or 2 feet 9 inches, if you wish, to make it exactly even with mine. And so what I will be looking at, this will be my view to the west. It will be a 10-foot with a 12-foot tall, further extension further back. I will be looking at a solid wall with screened windows. So that is the impact on my view. As you see in picture 3 above, there is no impact on the view of the Richards. They are facing towards, their deck faces south, and the screen porch has little impact on their view to the south. Okay, so that's the impact of the view. Now we can go further and go to the impact on sunlight. That's it. Impact on sunlight is pretty clear that if I have I go out on my deck and there's a 10-foot wall getting as tall as 12 feet and being, fairly deep across the deck, that the sunlight, my whole sunlight, and as well as the view, will be expunged by this screened porch. Okay, and then the issue of privacy. You will see that you can't see my arrows, but you will see the the view into the Richards house from the Leicester porch is through the 2 windows that are marked in red. These are side panels, and these are represented in the this is the floor plan on the 2nd and 1st floor for the Leicester house. The side panels are marked in yellow. The ability of the Leicesters from the screen porch to look into the Richards house is somewhat minimal, to say the least. First of all, as you can tell, these houses are not even on the same level, and they are not. I can tell you that they are not parallel. They are at an oblique angle. They're not parallel houses, so it's pretty hard to see into the Richards house from the Leicester screen porch. In addition to which, you will notice that the master bedroom is on the 2nd floor, which is very different from my house. Okay, so now we'll get to the privacy issue in my house. In my house, you can look directly from the screen porch from the Clipstein's house directly east into my living room window. So my living room window faces right on my deck, and looking east, this is what you'll see, my living room window. As I said, this is looking directly into my window, as contrasted to looking quite obliquely and far. If you look at the diagram above, you'll see that there's a huge distance between the 2 houses, and it's a very oblique, slanted window, as contrasted looking directly into my living room. Okay, so let's go down from my living room and see what. Okay, so it turns out, as you will go further down on this list, that my bedroom also faces directly on the deck. That's my bedroom, and that's the famous deck, and it's all on the 1st floor. And when you are in my bedroom, you can look out the bedroom window, as you can see, and you can see the Clipstein's screened porch. And fortunately, they have a privacy screen that they put up, which I truly appreciate, because it screens me from them as well as them from me. I really like the privacy, and privacy screens are sort of important. But this is a very different situation than the Richards have regarding the Leicester screen porch. In addition to which, the Clipsteins are going to elongate their deck even further, so that even more of my bedroom will be visible from the screened porch and the screened windows. So as I said, the screens they have now are going to be placed by windows. Okay, so further down, that's privacy. Okay, then there is my neighborhood. As you will see, privacy is sort of important in my neighborhood, and there are a lot of privacy fences. And the 3 houses north of the Richards house all have, as you can see, they all have privacy fences. No, the left is the houses right next to the Richards houses. You'll notice there, each one of the 3 houses has privacy screens, privacy fences, I should say, but not privacy screens, privacy fences. In fact, the concept of privacy and privacy fences is so important in our neighborhood that if you look at the townhouses, the rear of the townhouses on the right, you will see that they have privacy fences not only on the ground level, but at the upper deck level. They have 2 levels of privacy fences in these neighborhoods. So we believe in privacy fences. And it just so happens, if you go down to the next set of photographs, that you will see that at the ground level, the Clipsteins and I have privacy fences between our 2 homes at the bottom level. The left picture is a picture of my privacy fence, which screens me from looking into the to the Clipsteins patio. And the Clipsteins also have a fence which prevents them from looking into the Barros's patio. So our houses are considered close enough to accommodate and maybe require privacy fences. But can we go further down? Okay, so this is my this is a matter of logic to me. My house is close enough to the Clipstein house that the Resident Association thinks that it's appropriate to have privacy screens between the 2 houses at the lower level. And the Clipsteins have put up privacy fences. The Clipsteins have put up privacy screens. They've put up privacy screens at the deck level. And so it seems to me illogical that Resident Association would logically say the houses are close enough on the bottom level to require and accommodate privacy screens, but the houses are so far apart at the level above that it's fine to have screened windows looking onto the other person's deck. To me, it is illogical, but that's maybe for court to decide. And then lastly, I would like to say that okay, so my problems are that my view, my privacy, and my sunlight will be impacted, that the screen porch does not reflect the character of the neighbor, which actually has, as you can see, where there's privacy screen above, a privacy screen below, when it comes to the townhouses, and it has privacy screens privacy fences in a number of places throughout our Resident Association. And last of all, I think the screen porch will be too large for the site. Those are my arguments.
Great, thank you. So what we'll do is we'll go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for you, Marilee, and then we will have a discussion, okay?
Right, sorry.
So just for a new board member, so I'll go around, I'll ask ask if you have any questions for the applicant. And then if you do, ask them now. We can always come back, but then we'll have a discussion between board members once we ask any questions or clarifications we need. So just a reminder.
Michael, excuse me, could we clarify that for the new folks, that the issue at the moment is simply whether there are new facts
Or a misapplied guideline.
misapplied guidelines, not the merits at the moment.
Correct. So just remember, misapplied guideline or new information. So Sarah, do you have any questions for Mary Lee?
I previously reviewed the entire application in great detail, and I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Did Elena join us, staff, or is she not on yet?
I don't believe she's joined us.
Okay. All right. Then, John, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I just wanted to clarify one thing. The lady we've been listening to is insisting that the screen porch is going to be 3 feet longer. But when I looked at the information today, they said that the screen porch would be no longer than the existing deck below, that the existing deck would be extended, but the screen porch would be basically stopping at the point where the current deck stops.
No, I think it is extending an additional 2'9" past the current deck. That's at 12 feet. It's going to 14'9", is what our decision was for last, I guess, for the approval that's being appealed at the moment.
Was that was that just the lower deck, or was it look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look at the plat, it kind of shows the updated that it's still calling out 15 feet, but it's really 14'9". I'm not sure what the final, but yeah, it is about 3 feet bigger. We never got a clear determination on what the existing deck was. I think we think it was about 12 feet is what I think we tried to read on the plat. Yeah. So
thank you for the clarification.
Yep. Jim, did you have any questions for the appellant?
I do not.
Bruce, did you have any questions?
I had two things. One, I've explained, but I'll say that the last time this came up, but for our new members, I am the immediate neighbor for these two homes, so I will be abstaining, but I do have an opportunity to discuss some of the facts. As far as what I was considering, and maybe this wasn't clear in the appeal, and I don't know if I considered this a new fact, that the home, the Marilee's home is situated in an entirely different situation than the other situation that we've reviewed and approved for this cluster. The Marilee's home, or maybe stated another way, the applicant's home is situated between two homes that are entirely parallel, turned 180 degrees. So this is not a side-by-side comparison. This is a back-to-side comparison. So when Marilee is showing the pictures of her home, I don't know if it was apparent to the board that her home literally faces, the back of her home faces the deck as opposed to it's parallel to the deck. And like I said, I don't know if that's determinative, but we're talking about new facts. I didn't know if that was known to the board at the time. And I didn't vote, so I obviously I know that.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Marilee, or just that one clarification?
Well, for Marilee, I just think it's important that that fact be understood.
Okay.
And she can confirm that I'm correct, I assume. that her
Marilyn.
rear faces a entirely different direction. It's not parallel. It's not parallel to the Klipstein home that's having the applicant's home.
I guess
So
I don't quite understand it because I'm looking at the photograph and if you look at our, I guess I don't understand parallel because when you look at our, at our plats where our houses are face exactly north and south in the same direction, we have our compass.
But the
points
front
in
of
exactly
yours,
the same-
and stated another way, the front of your house faces east. The front of their house faces north.
Yes, but our decks face, I'm not sure that.
But the
makes
whole
any
back of
difference.
your house, including your bedroom, then has a different perspective than a side-by-side is the point, Marilyn.
Yeah. So I think Bruce is pointing out, like, so staff, go to slide like 34, for example. That basically there's portions of this house on the right-hand side with, there's basically, they have almost maybe a 10-foot bump out or so that looks directly towards this other neighbor's deck,
Yes,
essentially.
it's true,
Which-
it's true.
Which I think is
Yeah.
the fact that Bruce is trying to represent, was not aware of in the original application. So Marilee, can you confirm for me, the only question I had for you was, staff, can you go to page 35? So yeah, right there. So Marilee, are those the 3 windows that are shorter on the first floor? That is your bedroom?
That isn't my house. That's their house. You have to look at, you'll have to look at, that's their house and you'll see where, yeah, my house is on the left. You see my house in relationship, my house is on the left.
Your house is on the left or the right?
The left. So you can see those little screened fences, that they put up, those 2 little grills there. That's
Mhm.
that's what they put up, the privacy fences to separate me from them. I have 10 feet from their
Okay.
deck to my deck. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So staff, if we go to slide, it's hard to see, but slide 33. Your bedroom, so your deck comes right to the perimeter of your
Yes,
house, and
of
your
my house.
bedroom is on the first floor there,
Yes, well, those, yes, those.
kind of where the
that's-
arrow is.
Yes,
almost, yeah.
yes.
Okay,
That's
okay,
my
all right.
bedroom.
All right, understood. Okay. Well, board, let's have a discussion. Thank you, Marilee. We will come back to you. Okay.
All right, thanks.
So I think from the original application, I believe I voted against this one mainly because of the size of it. I think it needs to be scaled back to 12 feet, which is the existing deck. I believe I was overruled in that manner, and that was mainly because most people were okay with the size. I think that guideline was misapplied, mainly because of the kind of the views that are coming out of this neighbor's house, I think are going to be impacted drastically by extending that deck another 3 feet and then adding an 8-foot wall within a 2-foot roof on top of it. It's not as going to be as airy and visible as a deck is. So for that matter, I do believe a guideline was misapplied. I don't know if any of the new board members, obviously you weren't. Jim, did you have any say in it? You were on the original, you were there, so you could kind of get a feel for it, but do you feel like we misapplied anything? Or
Well,
I
do think that her point about the bedroom looking, directly over there, I think that is a valid point. And what I was going to suggest is maybe we could consider, if you could bring up that elevation again that faces, or that's replacing those screens that are in the picture currently shown, that possibly the openings in the screen porch, the bottom of them could be raised up, in effect, creating more of a clear story, side openings, which would, I guess, give Marilee the more of the privacy that she's after.
Well, hold on, before we get to that, let's make sure whether we accept the appeal or not before we start talking about kind of the application again. It'll just keep it easier. So I like the comment though, just for the record. So what does anybody, I mean, I'm willing to make a motion that I feel like a guideline of the mass and kind of blocking views of the neighbor was misapplied. I also think there is new information in my stance. Also, I don't need to have two reasons, but my other reason would be I did not know that her direct view of the bedroom was, right there, and that this is impacting that. So even for that reason, I think it's going too far out. And the precedent in the neighborhood, the other deck of screen porch is a different situation in the sense that it's not a middle unit. For that reasons, I'm going to make a motion to accept the appeal. And so there's a motion on the table.
I'll second your motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, we'll take a vote. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Any against?
Nay.
And any abstentions?
Abstain.
All right, so the motion passes 3-1-1. So we will accept the appeal, Marilee, and we will hear the application over. So the process for this is now we need to, is the applicant here, Cam or LaShonda?
I don't see Mr. Clipstein. Mr. Clipstein, if you are here under a different name, could you please raise your hand? He did confirm that he was going to be here, but I don't see him. Again, Mr. Clipstein, if you're on the call, can you please raise your hand if you are under a different name? I don't believe he's present.
Okay. I would like the applicant to have the ability to present the application, so we can kind of talk through potentially some design modifications. So I would motion to just move it to the end of the agenda tonight. And if they join, then we can talk about it. And if they don't join, then we will maybe motion to move it to the next board meeting. So I will motion to amend tonight's agenda and move application 11563 Hemingway Drive to the end of the agenda. Do I hear a second?
Michael, could you clarify that with the understanding that the appeal has already been granted?
Yes, yeah, the appeal's been granted. So we're hearing the application de novo. And I wish the applicant was here so we can talk through some potential modifications to get this to where it needs to be. So there's a motion on the table acknowledging that the appeal was granted. So we're hearing the case over. Do I have a second to move it?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we'll move it to the end. All right, up next is application G, which is 2524 Farrier Lane. This is also an appeal. This is for, once again, just remember you need to prove that a guideline was misapplied or there is new information. I believe Jim and Bruce were part of the panel that this one was decided at, so they will have to abstain from the vote, but they can take a part in the discussion. So is the appellant here? I think the appellant is also the applicant in this case.
Yes, here.
Oh, all right. If you guys could walk us through your appeal, just a reminder, new information or misapplied guideline. Take it away.
So pretty simple. The new information provided was last time we were asked to provide those on our street that have board-on-board fences, and most notably those on our street who have board-on-board fences that back up to the trail. And we've provided those addresses.
Okay, so your new information is stating that there's a standard set in the neighborhood and that is applying to our fence guideline that says that fences should be in similar fashion and installed in similar fashion to their neighbors.
Yes, and that the board has a desire not to have board on board backed up to the trail when we said that there were already those in the neighborhood and those that back up to the trail.
Okay. Let me go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for you. Sarah, did you have any questions for the appellant?
No, I reviewed this prior to the meeting in full detail and I have no questions.
Okay. John, did you have any questions?
I also saw her clarification with the additional addresses that have board on board fencing, and I have no questions.
Okay. Jim, did you have any questions?
I do not.
All right. And then Bruce, did you have any questions?
Well, the question I will have, I don't know if it's at this stage or on if appeal is granted, is if we have awareness of those, whether those were approved by the DRB.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. So staff, can you, I don't have any questions for the applicant at this time. Staff, can you clarify, so with the addresses provided, were you guys able to do a little research and see if those projects obtain DRB approval?
Yes. So 2521 was approved at the August 7th, 2008 full board meeting. 2517 was a staff approved on June 13th, 2019. 2515, we couldn't find an approval for this one. 2513, there was no approval found, but there is an existing pool in the backyard. 2511, no approval found, but there is a pool on property as well. 2510, it was originally denied, the owner appealed, and the appeal was accepted and the fence was approved in August of 2005. And all of these face Lawyers Road.
Correct. So that's what I was going to note, is all those addresses, those are all bordered Lawyers Road, and we have currently they have a board on board fence approved at 2524 for the let's call it the left hand side of the property that borders Lawyers Road. That board on board fence is approved, correct?
That is correct.
2524. Okay.
Yes.
So the part that we're reviewing is just for the rear and the right side to kind of fully wrap it around, and that happens to border a trail, from my understanding. It's hard to tell from the satellite view.
Can I just make one point of clarification?
Yes.
It's just for the rear. So on the right side is our neighbor's property, and they have the split rail fence. So our fence would just go on the rear. So we just want to take from the left side and have that match and come through the back of our property. And then additionally, when you're looking at the front of our house, just enclosures to get to our backyard on either side.
Okay, thank you. Entrance service and trail. So just for the record, staff, the Reston is Reston Association a bordering property? Is parcel 3D, is that owned by Reston?
That is
doesn't
correct.
Doesn't say it on the plat. Did Reston Association sign and say that it was okay to build the fence on the property line?
We did not, and we were an affected party on the application.
Okay. Well, it's an appeal, so I can't hear from you guys yet. All right. So Bruce and Jim, you guys were a part of this main panel. You guys were aware that this was bordered resident association, that they were an affected party. Can you guys, I mean, was that a factor at all in the decision that you guys made, or?
What we were trying to do is apply the standard and try to accommodate at least part way by the concern that the homeowner had that the rear of the property was exposed to, I think, to the trail or other Reston Association property, or that they could see the street and a bus stop across the way on Lawyers, to turn the corner with the board on board to try to address that concern, but maintain the compliance with the standard. So we were aware that there was Reston property and we were trying to accommodate, but the applicant was not interested in that accommodation.
Okay. But it's not new information that Resident Association was a border. You knew, and they were an affected party, and you heard from them a part of this application.
We knew they were an applicant. I'm sorry, I don't recall the specific back and forth with the Reston Association, but we knew that it was a bordered Reston property.
Okay.
Reston Association property.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess right now, I mean, I'm not seeing necessarily any new information that I didn't already know, because half those houses don't necessarily have an approval for exactly what they're going for. There's one that borders a trail, but it also has a pool, is my understanding, Steph, and they're really none of the exact. Now that I know the existing neighbor has a split rail, it's a little tricky. They provided all houses that are not direct neighbors, that are kind of on the other side. So I mean, I like the idea of turning the corner with the board on board, but that's not up for really discussion. And then kind of switching to a split rail. But
Sorry, 2510 does not, that backs up to the trail, does not have a pool.
okay.
And that one did have approval.
And Steph, do you have an exact approval for 2510?
Yes, we do.
Was there any, like, you just read what the approval says?
It said that it was denied originally, and the applicant appealed, and the DRB at the time approved it due to the already established pattern of board-on-board fencing on adjacent properties.
Right. Which in this instance, that was because 2511 had it, 2513 had it, 2515 had it, and therefore they were just kind of continuing it.
Correct. So 2511 had a pool, which is adjacent, and then 2513, 15, 17, and 21 all border Lawyers Road.
Okay. It's new information, but I don't know if it's new information that is effective to this address, in my opinion. Does anyone else on the board have any thoughts on the information provided? Sarah, John?
Nope.
Okay, Jim, Bruce, I guess you guys can't vote, but do you guys feel like that's it's new information, whether you guys knew it or not, but I don't know if it's relevant to this situation.
To be fair to the applicant, we did ask if what the situation was, and but in the context of in this context of trying to understand whether it is a truly parallel situation, that's clear. So we definitely want to know what the pattern was, but I'm not sure that this establishes the pattern that we're looking for to see whether we could approve the application.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion on the appeal. So I'm going to motion to deny the appeal, but recommend the applicant to amend their application for an adjusted fence design for kind of maybe be turning the corner and kind of working its way down to a split rail at some point. I think that could be a good option. And I would also get Resident Association to weigh in and sign the application because they are an affected party, and building on directly on a property line requires the adjacent property owner to approve of said direct on property line. So I'm going to motion to reject the appeal, but kind of give that advice, just so you don't just get a rejection. I want to kind of be a little helpful. So there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Am I clear that Jim and I are excluded from this?
Correct. So Jim and Bruce, you cannot vote. So there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Just a reminder, so me, Sarah, and John are the only three that can vote. So all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Nay.
Any abstentions? We have 2 abstentions for Jim and Bruce. Legal, can you weigh in? Is that motion still passes, even though it's only two out of our 5, even though 2 were abstentions? Tony, you on?
He is on.
Tony, you're muted if you're trying to speak. Cam, do you know?
I would say that the motion passes. You have 2 in an affirmative and 1 in the nay. The 2 abstentions.
I would agree. It's as if they were not here.
Yep.
But I'm not the lawyer, so we can hold off until the lawyer comes back. I think he dropped off because he couldn't unmute himself.
Yeah, I think he'll be back. Let's just wait to give him a second.
But we do have the owner from the first application on the line when we're ready to go back.
Well, tonight is just a game of waiting tonight. Cam, are you in contact with Tony via cell phone at all? Just knowing that he is in fact trying to get back on.
Yes, I'm calling and texting him now.
Awesome. Sorry, everybody. Thank you for being patient with us. I just want to make sure we get this right.
He's joining now, but he says that it failed.
Sorry for the record. So he's saying the motion would not pass. It fails.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. So for the record, our legal counsel is saying the motion cannot pass with only 2 votes, with the 2 abstentions. So we'll go back at it again. Sarah, John, what are your your thoughts. Sarah, you were in the negative, so what would you propose?
Well, I thought that they had, it sounded like the question that they needed to come back to was, is the fencing that they are proposing, is there an existing precedence for it? And they answered that with a yes. So it seemed to me that they met the requirement of what was being asked of them.
Could I clarify
Right.
at one point?
Sure.
The discussion was related around what fences existed and what the addresses were for those fences that were 6 feet. So has the appellant provided the information related to that question? I believe that's what Bruce and Jim discussed, and that's the information that was requested. So we're looking at whether or not, we're not looking at the precedent being set, we're looking at whether or not the information was sufficient to either be classified as new information or a guideline was misapplied. We knew that those fences were there, we just didn't know what addresses they were attached to.
Yeah, and
Is that correct in my understanding, Bruce?
I was just looking for more information on to understand the application. That looking for what was comparable in the neighborhood, and so what I would have understood the new fact was what's comparable, that there are comparable fences in the neighborhood, but I'm not sure that once we understood the information that was presented, that it was comparable. So
they answered your question, but it necessarily wasn't helpful.
they answered a question, but not the question.
It wouldn't have been impactful on your decision, essentially.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it was clarification information, but it wasn't helpful necessarily to, and yeah, I mean, obviously we could bring new information to any appeal, but if it's not relevant to the application, then it's not really new information at that point.
That's
I think Tony is on now.
Okay. Well,
Tony, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
there you are, Tony.
I apologize. I'm having technical difficulties tonight. I would suggest, since you are missing 2 directors, perhaps deferring this matter if you are deadlocked.
Okay. Let me ask Sarah one more question. Just so Sarah, do you understand kind of what that is saying? Would that change your feeling, or do you think we should just defer it until we have more members?
We could, so we have more members.
Okay. So if we defer it, I will make a motion to defer with the recommendation that the applicant amend their application, because I think there's still a couple things that could be worked on it. So since you have to wait another month, I want to try to help you out, help yourself. And so that would be a motion to defer with that clarification. So there's a motion to defer. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor of the deferral, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And 2 abstentions. All right. The motion passes. Thank you, guys. Sorry we couldn't get to the bottom of it tonight. All right. Let's move on to Tall Oaks Assisted Living. We have we approved something in concept, and I guess they're now coming for final approval. Is that?
That is correct. The representative for the Tall Oaks, Russ, is on. We're just asking him to unmute.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Chair Wood, members of the DRB. My name is Russ Forno. I'm a land use planner with Odin, Feldman, and Pittleman. I'm here to represent the Tall Oaks assisted living facility application. Forgive me, I did not know that PowerPoints need to be submitted a week before, and I had prepared one for tonight. I'm hoping that if board members would allow me to use it, they're just excerpts of the materials already submitted, nothing new, and it may help facilitate this agenda item.
I don't think we have the ability to let you present. So
That's okay.
Unfortunately, you can walk us through. I mean, I know I'm familiar with the application because we've kind of approved it in concept. I know we do have a couple new board members, so I do think it would be beneficial to kind of walk us through exactly what you're doing, and then there are some affected parties on the case, so we will then hear from them once your presentation is done, and then we'll come back to you with any questions. Okay.
Sounds good.
Take it away.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Online with me also is John Albert, Regional Director for Tall Oaks Assisted Living, and Max Burkhalter, our civil engineer with Walter L. Phillips. Tall Oaks Assisted Living, as most of you know, is a member of the Reston Association and has been since 1988, providing a quality family lifestyle for seniors needing round-the-clock assisted care who desire to make Reston their home. The agenda item before you is a request for final approval of an application that you approved in concept only in an April meeting last year. This is page 1 of your packet. The scope of the application's proposed improvements remains the same. Bring Tall Oaks Assisted Living back into zoning compliance with the minimum parking required, due in part to the redevelopment of the Tall Oaks Village Center, and in doing so, improve the fire safety emergency access that's been a big concern for first responders. Finding a balance between environmental preservation and our built environment, I think, is the focus of this project. If you recall from your initial review of this application last year, we explained how we were chasing a legislative parking reduction to reduce the number of required off-street parking and design alternative parking for the nurses and staff in order to minimize our limits of disturbance. Also, as part of our legislative approvals that occurred in July last year, we are also proposing to install pre-wiring for electric vehicle charging stations. Forgive me, on the application form, I had said the full stations were proposed. It's just the pre-wiring. I just wanted to make that clear, and I apologize for that. So we were going to install, in addition to the other elements of the pre-wiring for electric vehicle charging stations, up in the top, the northwest corner, and the 2 parking spaces adjacent to the delivery location for vehicles of the facility, which is also right adjacent to the redevelopment of the Tall Oaks Village Center. So that, and incorporating pervious parking surfaces into the design, as well as improve the site so that there is less uncontrolled stormwater runoff. Those are essentially the elements. For final approval, the DRB requested we provide information related to colors, materials, and dimensions of all elements, temperature readings of proposed lighting and light fixture type, final site plan, and a tree preservation plan. The colors, materials, and dimensions of all elements are provided in the submitted site plan that's part of your agenda packet and is the same plan that's been reviewed already by county staff. Ms. Graham's detailed review made sure of it, and she pointed out one dimension that I missed, which is the height of the proposed flagpole. Also in your packet on page 21, you would have seen the landscape exhibit that we put together for you to try to capture all the elements that I've summarized all in one sheet. So as you know from last year's applications review, we are proposing to keep up the unified theme of colors and materials used by the Tall Oaks Village Center redevelopment. Temperature readings of proposed lightings are going to be in the range of what is appropriate for commercial applications. And also we'll be using what's called turtle-friendly lighting which is designed so that lighting is cast downwards onto paved areas, sidewalks, and but not up into the sky or into the woods. And the lighting plans that we submitted with this that you have in your packet aim to show you that. The final site plan currently right now is gearing up for a resubmission in the county site plan review process. The tree preservation plan, that's part of the site plan. That's sheets 53 and 54 of your packet. The tree preservation plan was prepared by a certified arborist and landscape designer. The arborist identified 43 specimen trees for preservation within the limits of site disturbance. 15 are marked to be removed. The rest that are marked for removal are invasive, which is not what we want, nor is acceptable to the county for redevelopment. These invasive species include mulberry, pear, princess tree, and tree of heaven. Although we're losing those 15 specimen trees, we are adding 28 new non-invasive specimen trees and 96 shrubs, which at full maturity will provide 39% canopy cover for the site where only 30% is required. On page 100 of your packet, the new tree specimens to be installed will include redbud, black gum, scarlet oak, fringe tree, shadlow serviceberry, and eastern red cedar. New shrubbery will include sweet spire, northern bayberry, and inkberry. The proposed landscape plan, like the tree preservation plan, is part of the site plan. That's pages 56 and 58 of your packet. This includes an off-site planting plan that was developed in coordination with the Villas de España HOA. The off-site planting plan is on page 58. It seeks to preserve, it will preserve 6 chestnut oaks, 1 white oak, and the large 40-inch red maple tree. New plantings in that off-site area will include also 11 new trees and 10 shrubs. On behalf of the owner and residents of Tall Oaks Assisted Living, I thank you for hearing us tonight, and we hope you're satisfied with our efforts to strike a balance between the environment and built form, and are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Russ. What I'll do is there are some affected parties. LaShonda, do you have a list of who registered as an affected party and would like to speak tonight?
I do. We have Michael Gears. Give me 1 second, asking him to unmute. He is present. There were other affected parties, but they had withdrawn their statement after reviewing the offsite planting plan.
Okay.
Mr. Gears, you are unmuted.
So just sorry, before you start, sir. So just a reminder, affected parties have 3 minutes to state their affected party status. And then if you're representing a group, you would have 5 minutes. So just let us know if you are representing a group and we'll give you your additional time. So take it away, sir.
Yep, I can do it in 3 minutes. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Gears at 1654 Valencia Way, member of the RA Fiscal Committee, but tonight I'm speaking as general RA member that lives next to the proposed project. Preparing for tonight's meeting, I've communicated with Tall Oaks legal team as well as Supervisor Walter Elkhorn to better understand the proposed project. While Tall Oaks parking lot is small, it's important to note that there is ample parking on both sides of North Shore Drive, which runs parallel to the facility. Many Tall Oaks staff currently park on North Shore and walk to the facility. I timed it. It takes 1 minute, 20 seconds to walk from North Shore to the front doors of Tall Oaks. I often see staff utilize parking at Tall Oaks Plaza as well. They don't tow there. So I want to emphasize there is alternative parking already for Tall Oaks. I understand the underlying cause for the proposed project is to meet county parking ordinance for the facility. However, the county is currently in the middle of its initiative called Parking Reimagined, which will be assessing overall parking rates and regulations for off-street parking and loading for the first time since 1988. I believe it's premature for the facility to act upon parking zoning ordinance that could be outdated in a year. Putting the ordinance aside, if Tall Oaks really does in fact need additional parking, why not build on the current parking footprint? The new townhomes next door have created underground parking garages for their residents, so we know the ability for Tall Oaks to do the same as possible. I posed this very question to Mr. Forno, in which he said, the issue comes down to cost. Well, I understand the proposed project is the most economical option for the applicant. It harms many more homeowners by decreasing our property values. The two most important rules you have is 1, protect property values, and 2, conserve natural resources of Reston. I ask you, how does this project accomplish either of those? This will remove 60 trees from our last remaining woodland area separating us from the plaza, an area that's already been gutted from the Tall Oaks condo development. A local real estate agent estimated that a wooded view adds about 20 grand of value to our homes. Based on conversations with Tall Oaks Council, I understand they have not performed any studies or analyses to quantify the impact the project will have on property values. I come to you tonight because the DRB was established to prevent unneeded projects like this from occurring in Reston. I understand why the county approved this since it's a county requirement for a zoning ordinance, but Reston has never been a place to put convenience over conservation. I ask you on behalf of all Tall Oaks residents, please do not let our neighborhood go from Tall Oaks to no Oaks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody? So nobody else, Lashonda?
No. We had an affected party that withdrew their statement. Just want to ask if there's any other affected parties on for Tall Oaks. Could you please raise your hand? And yes, that's all we have.
Yeah, so the only thing who wrote the statement called Tall Oaks Written Statement of Concern? It wasn't signed, it didn't say who it was from. So it said true need of alternative parking, what alternative parking considerations were made that will not impact the environment as currently proposed, extent of tree removal and how applicant will select which trees to keep, stormwater runoff, et cetera. Do you know who it's like? That's from Michael Gears. Okay, gotcha. That's who just spoke. Okay. I see it now from his section above. Okay, never mind. All right, let me go around the room and see if we have any questions for the applicant. And then we can go from there. So just as a reminder, this project did receive a conceptual approval, which basically means we gave them the green light to get started, but we wanted some additional information. And I believe a couple of those things we were looking for were colors, materials, dimensions of all elements to include fence and retaining walls, lighting temperatures on all the site and other proposed lighting, final site plan, and tree preservation plan. So with that in mind, Sarah, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I reviewed the material prior to the meeting and I have no questions.
Okay. John, did you have any questions?
No questions. I looked at all this material earlier today.
Okay. Jim, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Bruce?
I just wanted to clarify that there has been, it seemed to me, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, that there's been some adjustment in the landscape plan. Is that correct? Since because we were looking for more details and it seemed to me that there was a different quantity of the tree removals had changed somewhat. I just was trying to get clarification specifically so we could focus on the things that had added or changed since we reviewed this in concept and approved it in concept.
Russ, can you answer that? Is he unmuted?
Hello, can you, I think I'm on.
Yeah, there you are, Russ. Yeah, so can you clarify on have the trees amount moved? Has the landscape plan slightly adjusted? Kind of walk us through that.
Max Burkhalter may be able to speak better on me, but I will start off by telling you that at the time the board was entertaining this application in April of last year. The zoning reviews were still in process, and we had only just secured zoning approvals in July, and subsequent to that, we got into the detailed engineering phase to start building the site plan, if that makes sense. Because what you were looking at was conceptual zoning plan level, and then we go down the engineering level after we get the zoning approvals in July.
That's correct.
Does that answer your question?
generally speaking, you know, the greatest concern we've heard from the neighbors are the tall oaks and the scale of removal of the mature trees. So I was trying to understand how that was addressed, knowing that was one of the primary concerns. So I was trying to, we approved in concept, but I was trying to understand how that concern was addressed in the final application.
So the tree counts are in line with the approximate numbers that are listed in the in-concept only approval letter. I believe, and Max might chime in here, I think we proposed 66 for removal and identified 73 for removal. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, only 15 of the trees being removed within the disturbance limits are specimen trees deemed of a reasonably healthy. They're given about between 67 or 65 and 69% health quotient. But that's only 15 trees. The rest of those 70 some trees are invasive. And they would choke out, and they would tend to choke out the non-invasive variety species. That's
yeah, I did understand that there were 43 invasive. I think, again, what I'm getting to is the concern that's been expressed to us about the most mature, most symbolic for a Tall Oaks neighborhood. That's what I was trying to understand. And telling me that they're native is one thing. I'm trying to understand what's happening to those Tall Oaks.
Okay, if you go to page 58 of your packet, okay, that should have the list of the tree survey that's within the limits, the disturbance limits that the arborist conducted. And you'll see columns where trees are marked to be preserved and trees marked to be removed. And the page 56, the plan on page 56 corresponds to that table. And you can see the X's that signify what's being removed, and the little numbers on page 56 plan identify reference back to that table of which trees are specimen trees. And I think I have some more finer numbers here. See if I guess your questions are mostly focused around the area that's along the pathway there between the Via de Hispana and the facility, correct?
Primarily because that's where we heard the concerns of the community.
Yeah, I think the big thing is if you're on Valencia Way, which is kind of that dead end street that directly is on the opposite side, you know, there's a significant tree canopy and screening right now that basically screens not only the Tall Oaks building, but also kind of the parking, right? And even over to all the new buildings going on in the rest of the Tall Oaks Center. So I think that the critical part is wondering, are those trees all remaining, or is part of this retaining wall gonna undermine them, and which ones need to go?
There's 6 chestnut oaks, 1 white oak, and the largest, that big 40-inch caliper tree, maple tree. Those are the ones that are staying on that side. Those are the ones that are remaining. Let me see if I can, maybe you can bring up, do you have page 58 up? Yes. Okay. If you could zoom in on the travelway a bit, please. My eyes aren't the greatest.
So zoom in, staff, on the Valencia Way. So to the right of where it says existing building and that dashed line, if you could zoom in kind of, down there. So that's Valencia Way. So what's interesting here is it seems like there's definitely trees to the right of kind of where they're marked out. So I believe are also all the trees, basically half of that end of that street, the trees are having to come out, but I don't know why. or maybe it's just not marked.
No, the trees that are coming out are the tree, if you are, you see the X's that go, there's two, we got a fence line that has X's, which are to be ignored. But then you have slightly smaller looking X's. Those are the existing trees to be removed.
Gotcha. Yeah, the ones that kind of are just floating in the middle of the parking,
Yes, sir.
kind of on the left side of the page. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And so also a part of that I failed to mention, but you already knew, is that there's a 6-foot board on board fence that's a part of the approved plan, zoning plan.
So, Bruce, does that kind of help understand your question?
Well, yeah, I saw this in the packet, and I saw that host of X's, and I was trying to understand that host of X's, and maybe I'm just off on this, to the distinction between the evasive and the
oh, okay. And that's where you look at, that's where you look back to that table on page I forget now, 58. Yeah. So on this sheet, that on the plan, you'll see some numbers referenced, and they correspond back to the table.
Okay. So,
but you have to zoom in. But if you count all those X's,
yeah,
throughout the site, all those X's add up to 73. But again, only 15 of those X's are non-invasive. And then everything, the new installations, by the way, are not seedlings or small plantings. They have required to have certain heights when the plants are reached a certain level of maturity before they're installed as part of any development. So we're not talking about seedlings from the very get-go when they're installed.
Okay, thank you.
So my question goes to the first thing. I didn't see a stone veneer as part of the application. We requested what the stone would look like for these retaining walls. I did not see it. Maybe you can point me in the right direction of where I'm missing it, but I did not see it.
Well, yeah, that's those pictures. Well, it was part of my Photoshop, my PowerPoint, but it was submitted with the materials that were submitted with the in concept only, that we're just going to carry the theme of the stone veneer that's already existing for the Tall Oaks Village redevelopment. We're not changing or proposing any change of that in that color or theme for the retaining wall.
Okay.
It's page 112 in the packet.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, Cam. Okay, so that is what you're matching. So just for the record, I just want to make sure we understand that they're matching existing retaining walls that are.
Yeah. If you can picture going into the Tall Oaks facility now, and there's that retaining wall on the right side just before you go through the entrance, it's that color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so my other question is your lighting, it appears, is matching the Tall Oaks Center as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'm just kind of clarifying that for the fellow board members, just so everyone's kind of aware. My second question is about the path. And so, I frequent this path, I use this path. And so during construction, is there this is a two-part question. Is there a plan in place to keep the path open? And then B, it appears that it kind of goes to a sidewalk and then it kind of dumps you out almost in like a handicap accessible space. It directs you. I guess maybe there's a better plan. Like, is there a connection to get? Is there kind of a connection to get into the Tall Oaks trail network that's right there, kind of in between those townhouses? Do you have that
color landscape plan you can go to? I think that was page 50. That was Page 21, yes. Thank you. Thank you, LaShonda. Okay, so yeah, there you can see if you zoom in, the dark gray on the right side is the existing trail. You can zoom into the, if you want to.
Right. But I guess but where does it connect? I guess that side I understand. That's as easy, right?
Okay.
I'm wondering how does it tie into the Tall Oaks trail net? It's not really a trail network, but they kind of have a little bit of a central green area that leads to the playground that then kind of walks back down to kind of towards Tall Oaks Pool.
Yeah, LaShonda,
are we tying into that?
Yes, we are. If you could zoom in, it's better to, it's easier to see where the existing trail ends, and there's sort of like a thin black line of a crosswalk where a crosswalk would be to the yellow on the other side of the curb across the travel aisle. And following that yellow sidewalk, that means a sidewalk, it goes right across onto another crosswalk. Yes. And then continues along where it says walk into and connecting through to the sidewalks, trails, and everything in there in the Tall Oaks Village.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to see because we can't really see the trail on that sheet. LaShonda, go to slide 60, please. This is still part of the new application, even though this is the fire truck turnaround.
Yeah,
I guess I'm seeing it a little better there, where it ties in on the left, right there behind the building, behind the office building there, the back right corner. It looks like it ties into the curve. We kind of have a little bit more wandering style trails that it ties into. Okay, all right. So now that I see that's helpful. I think the biggest challenge with this is, I think I voted against it from the beginning because I think it's a little bit of it's a preemptive request. It's not like the county is requiring you guys to do this. And you kind of created your own issue when there was kind of, not you didn't create the issue, but I mean, and am I correct in saying that, right? This is a more of a preemptive plan versus a reaction. Because I've never heard the county saying you need more spaces. Unless you plan.
No, the county has not said that we need more spaces, but we do need more spaces because it's illegal. It becomes a non-conforming use, and it would eventually get identified, but it needs to be corrected. And that's why we're being proactive to correct it. If that answers your question, and part of that was the whole package was seeking a parking reduction in order to meet the environmental stewardship, the responsibilities that, the Reston Association holds dearly and that we support. But we're trying to find a happy, some kind of medium between the two that would work effectively and also improve the safety of the site.
Okay.
Sorry.
Was there a response to my trail question during construction? Is there a way to keep some sort of detour, or is there a planned detour, or how are people going to?
It's possible there might be a way to keep the trail open during some stages of the construction. But now I don't know, Max may be able to speak better to it, but we can phase it. We might be able to phase it in and coordinate with letters to adjacent neighbors and communities about the trail status and its, being able to use it and all that. And we can add that to part of the pre-construction and construction schedule when we get to that stage. We can certainly work through that.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. Since it was brought up about an upcoming change to parking requirements being floated at Fairfax County, it's my understanding that as on the DRB, we're only working with ordinances that are in effect. And but is there any interest in getting to know more information about these changes at Fairfax County for a reduction in their parking requirement? That we might want to wait for something that comes that gets approved by Fairfax County, and perhaps that adjusts the scope and the requirement for the facility, and a de-scoping in some areas is good. It can save you, saves the money in the long run, decreasing the construction costs. But is that something that is, I just wanted to just have a little bit of discussion just to touch upon that, if there's any interest there.
Right. John, I don't know if you have any input on this, but I believe that the timing of the parking rate utilization study that the county is conducting is not in line with our construction schedule. And that's part of the reason. And so we went through the parking reduction process, which was a legislative process, and where we were conditioned to provide our own utilization rate study at some point when the zoning administrator calls for it. And we would have to comply with any considerations at that time. So there is currently an entitlement that exists on this property that the zoning administrator can take advantage of and require us to do something of that sort, where we do our own parking utilization, and then we work with the zoning administrator to determine a new parking rate if one becomes necessary as a result of that study. But right now, the important need was, first of all, to get a lot of the employees off the on-street parking because there's other traffic issues, and having enough employees to care for the residents was a major factor in also in trying to propel this application forward and try to get a new redesign, because of all I've heard there have been complaints about our parking on the street, and we're trying to alleviate that problem.
Okay. Thank you. You answered my question.
Thank you.
And for the record, the stormwater management is all being controlled with your on-site pond that you guys already kind of have, right?
Yes.
There's no underground tanks or anything like that, but you guys are directing a lot of that water towards there, or is there a lot of surface runoff that's going to make its way there?
Max, you want to speak to this? I believe we're concentrating a lot more surface runoff to directed pipe controlled runoff. Max, if you want to. I see he's raised his hand.
Steph, can you guys unmute Max? Max, go ahead.
Yes. Hi. That's correct. We're rerouting the runoff from the additional parking that's being proposed to the existing stormwater management pond. We are proposing a BMP facility before the pond that will filter the water for water quality purposes. And then the water will flow into the pond and slowly be released to the existing stream.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Anyone want to make a motion? Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one for me because like I said, I previously was not in favor of the application. It's a little tricky though. Once we give a conceptual approval, I kind of have to get behind the board's overall opinion at the time, and you guys provided kind of the information that we needed to kind of push this through. I necessarily don't want to go out on a limb to make a motion, but does anyone else on the board have any thoughts?
Michael, along the same lines, I mean, I had reservations and I was, and I recognize we approved in concept. I guess I'm influenced tonight by the fact that the neighbors who are most affected have withdrawn their objections. Seeing the plan as it finally was put forward and we're looking at. So I wasn't enthusiastic, but I am recognizing that the folks, this is a judgment. This isn't a guideline that would prohibit us or from voting one way or the other, require us to vote one way or the other. But I am influenced by the fact that the most immediate impacted neighbors have essentially signed off on this.
Yeah.
If I may add, the letter of approval from Villa de España is from the HOA board, not from any individual homeowners.
I understand that as their representative. I understand. Thank
you. Well, as the chair, I guess I will try to move us forward. So I'll put something out there. I will motion to approve the application with the following stipulation that the developer or the owner is required to maintain the trees that are most potentially impacted by construction, and that if they fail to live, and Tony, you can chime in if I'm not allowed to do this, but you know, if the trees die within, can I put a time limit on said motion, Tony? Does that make sense? I almost, you know, if the trees that potentially they're saying they're saving die within, let's say, a 2-year period, can we require them to replace them?
I don't think so. I don't think you can warranty the trees. I mean, I think that's outside the powers of the DRB.
Well, what if their construction kills all the trees that they say they're saving?
You could have them furnished or have RA inspect the trees prior to final approval.
Okay, so I'll motion to approve the application with the note that the applicant needs to contact RA's arborist and have them do a tree inspection during the process, before construction, during construction, and post-construction, to help maintain the healthiness of the trees that are being preserved.
I'm sorry, can I get a point of clarification? Are these trees on the resident association common area? If they're not, directing staff to assist with that would be a challenge. And I think that the developer builder should pay for their own arborist to certify that the trees and health, and do that in stages. That would be my suggestion.
My understanding is that is common area. Can we get clarification on that?
This is Max with Walter Phillips. So the tree removals are located on Tall Oaks property. And I would offer that the applicant during the development process, prior to the issuance of a non-residential use permit, will be required to have an inspection with urban forestry to ensure that the tree preservation as well as the required landscaping is installed before the county will issue their final inspections.
And that includes for trees that are off the property, because I believe the trees that I'm referencing are on the neighboring cluster's property, I believe. I don't know for certain. Do you guys share a border directly with Villa de España?
Right, there is a common property line. We are, as part of the perimeter erosion and sediment controls, we are providing, tree preservation measures, including root pruning and other
Understood.
measures.
I guess all I'm asking, essentially is what I want to have is a third party involved to make sure that this happens. We've had issues before. Just one where I can think off the top of my head, Lake Ann Fellowship House, there was trees that were supposed to be preserved that during the course of construction, I've slowly watched them die. And so it's a little bit of it's a catch-22 because they say, oh, the tree was dying anyway. Well, every tree is dying, right? You can make that argument. So all I'm saying is that I kind of want a third party. And what I was hoping is we could use RA as arborist, but it sounds like that potentially is not an option. The staff Tony, can I make a recommendation? Can I make a requirement that a third party arborist is required to inspect, periodically during construction for the trees that are being saved on neighboring property, not the ones on their own property? They can follow their own kind of processes. I'm mainly worried about the neighbors is my concern. Tony, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You think is that possible?
I think you could request prior to final approval that they provide arborist reports as to the status of the trees. I think that's possible, but anything more than that, you're kind of exceeding the bounds of design review.
But I think the reason why I'm doing it is that my approval is strictly, my recommendation for approval is strictly based on the fact that those trees are remaining, right? If those trees are not remaining, then, I would motion to deny the application. So to me, it's a pivotal decision in whether this application can be approved or not. And so to me, if the neighbor kills all your trees that are on your property with their project, it's it's a little unfair, in my opinion. And so it kind of is pivotal on the approval is those trees remaining in place and being preserved. So I just want to try to put a measure in there that does in fact kind of quote unquote warranty the trees. And I don't know if Tall Oaks, the developer, would be willing to would throw in kind of a
excuse me,
maybe an option.
Mr. Wood, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is John Albert. I'm the owner's representative. We would be happy. We want to be good neighbors. We'd be happy to volunteer to have a third party inspect the trees at the beginning. We've already had it done. That's how Max was able to determine which trees were in poor condition. But we would definitely want to inspect the trees and make certain that we didn't harm them. And if we did, we would definitely correct it. And I would volunteer that if that would help.
So if you could just volunteer kind of a midway construction report by an arborist, and then obviously you guys have to from the county have a post. It sounded like you guys need to have a post. So I just want to make sure if you guys are volunteering that would be awesome. And I think that would go a long way.
Yes, we'd be happy to do that.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So what I'll do is I'll motion to approve with the amendment that the applicant is going to provide a third-party arborist kind of midway construction inspection and a post inspection of the neighboring trees to make sure that they're remaining healthy. And for the record, the applicant has agreed to that request. So there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
All right, let's jump back up to Hemingway Drive. I believe the applicant is now on.
Yes, we're asking him to unmute.
Yes, we are, and I apologize. I had my calendar for the 21st, so I apologize.
No worries. You might have attended like a finance committee or something instead, but
Well, that may have been easier.
So just to kind of catch you up to where we were, so we accepted the fact that there was some new information about the view, almost as basically the view shed of the neighbor, and the massing of the guideline of massing was kind of misapplied. So we voted to accept the appeal and kind of hear the application de novo. And I think you can walk us through the application. I think we kind of have everyone has reviewed it and has a clear understanding of what's going on. I think we just kind of need to potentially work your way through it. You're welcome to represent. I then do have to hear from the affected party. They have another 3 minutes to state their case. So for the record, do you guys want to make another presentation, or do you want to kind of wait and then hear what our discussion is and ask any questions?
I think listening to your the discussion would be fine. I might just make as a preliminary comment, though, one of the things about this cluster is the way in which the patio homes were originally approved. And, there's really only, I was measuring, there's only 8.5 feet from the edge of our home to the edge of Miss Miller's home. But bear in mind that the way it was designed is the wall of Miss Miller's home, in fact, is our property line. So again, these are what I guess I would describe as zero lot line homes. The other thing I would mention for the benefit of the committee is that we've made every effort to minimize the impact, recognizing the proximity of these two homes by one, using a very shallow slope for the roof line, which minimizes the height overall. We also wanted to stay below the second floor windows on our home. And in addition, the design, which is shown in the material, shows a hip roof. That was done because it also minimizes the length of the ridge line for the roof ridge line. It's only actually 5 feet out from the bay area of this home. And then, of course, given the hip roof design, it slants down in every direction. I think the overall height of the new proposed porch, the top of the roof at the edge of our existing deck, is at about 8 feet, 8.5 feet. So it's not as tall as it might have been if it were designed differently. So again, we tried to minimize the height. We tried to take into consideration the proximity. The reason for requesting that the new porch be deeper as opposed to wider was because there was no objection to the HOA who owns the property directly behind our property. And again, by increasing the overall size of the porch only going towards HOA property, it tried to minimize the impact on our neighbor. So I just provide that as a way of introduction.
Great, thank you, sir. So for the affected party, Marilee, are you back? Are you still on? Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes to kind of state your case. Obviously, we're all up to date on the case from earlier tonight. So if you could state, you have 3 minutes, and then we'll let you know. Then we'll go back to reviewing the application. So take it away.
First of all, I'm sorry you missed the discussion, Mr. Clipstein, but during the discussion, the architects on this committee were able to decipher your drawings, and my understanding was that the wall was 10 feet tall and the roof was actually 12 feet tall. So you're saying that it's 8.5 feet tall as this is going to be. So anyway, I will go to the point that I made before, that my whole view to the west is going to be lost entirely. My privacy is going to be lost, and also the sunshine from the west is going to be lost. I will be looking at a wall of screens, or just a wall. But I'm not sure what the Reston Association considers the degree of sunshine lost or the degree of view lost as important. And that will be a very, very interesting question. In addition to privacy, plus the privacy fences that exist in the neighborhood. As I said, I think it is illogical to have screened porch with windows looking onto a property where there are privacy fences at the lower level. I'm not sure of the logic of that. As I said, I think it will be very large, extremely large for the site. It's going to be very large. And so with these things, I'm very interested in hearing what the approximate height is going to be. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So staff, if we can go to slide 39, because I want to get to the bottom of this height issue real quick, because I think a couple of my contexts are out of place. So we have, if you can slide over so we can see the elevation dimensions. So we have 100-foot floor height. Okay, so we have, there's going to be probably 2x10 decking, let's say, for example. So there's going to be a 10-inch deck board, fascia trim there, and then there's going to be an 8-foot high wall that then is going to have roof joists sitting on top of it, which are probably going to be 2x8s. If I had to guess, they maybe are 2x6s, but that fascia trim board that's called out is probably 6 inches. So let's say it's 8'6" to the top of that, which is going to be the perimeter edge of this structure, is 8'6". Then to the very peak of the hip is probably another 1.5 feet. If I did my math correctly on it. You said it was a 212 pitch, sir? Is that
Yes, it's a 2.3, but it's approximately 2.
So basically, we're going to be at a little over 10 feet. Is roughly at the very middle of the structure is 10 feet. The perimeter is going to be 8'6". Just for the record. So we kind of all understand, and this is all starting at the top of the deck board, the top of deck structure. So just for the clarification there, I just want to make sure everyone's aware of the heights. So let me go around the room and see if we have any questions for the applicant, and then we'll go from there. Sarah, did you have any questions for the applicant?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. John, did you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Jim, did you have any questions for the applicant? Suggestions?
No.
Okay. Bruce, did you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Okay. So my only question is, and I think I brought this up the last time it was reviewed, was I understand why you, I mean, obviously you guys want to go as deep as you want, as you can, right? I really think scaling this back to just be 12 feet, it's kind of a standard on the other porches, 12 feet. I understand you have the bay window, which kind of impacts the usable square foot of that 12 feet. I think it'll help the situation. I think another thing that Jim had recommended was to potentially, on the side that borders Miss Miller's house, is potentially almost do like a clear story of screens versus a full window. So you kind of already have that 4-foot wing wall. So staff, do we have a good side elevation? Slide 41. We had talked about maybe, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. I think I have the ability to draw on this. Why can't I draw? Anyways, basically a clear story would basically increase those wall heights, which are probably at about 3 feet right now on the side of just Miss Miller's house. And
Well,
and,
look
and
at it's the one on the left, not the one on the right, on her side.
right, yeah, correct. It's the one on the left. So there, we would increase the height of those little walls between the posts. That would increase kind of the line of sight. Essentially, would be a little bit more blocked. I am indifferent about that because to me, screens are a little bit less intrusive than siding, but privacy has been a concern of the neighbor. I like to have screen porches be nice and airy and feel like they're not even there. Is my personal opinion. But I think there's kind of a standard set in the neighborhood with these kind of little half walls, right? I mean, that was, I believe, the cluster. There's a cluster standard for screened in porches, and I believe they reference these half walls. Is that?
Well, the
Is that correct?
the homeowners association had asked from a design perspective that those walls be the same height as the required railing on the open decking side on the other side. So they would naturally be at about 3 feet tall. Our plan was, because of privacy, inside the screens on that side was to add blinds because we thought that would be helpful.
That's a good idea.
Your other point was regarding the depth. The depth is kind of important because a lot, perhaps half of this screened-in porch is adjacent to that bay area, which is a sliding glass door. So that area is about 7 feet wide. And that basically is half of the width of this proposed enclosed porch, which means in that space, you only have a deck that's on the interior that's going to be something around 8.5 feet. It makes for, it almost makes it unusable when you try to put furniture in there when you only have 8.5 total feet because of the wall.
And there is actually a building code provision that says no interior occupied space can be less than 7 feet in any direction.
Well, we would have 8.5. So I mean,
right.
it would meet that. But
right. I'm just saying if there was a request to reduce the size of it, that would be something to pay attention to, that you don't violate the building code by creating an occupied space with less than 7 feet interior dimension.
Right. So the current space there now is on that end is 12 feet. And we had suggested going out 15 because that made more sense. When we had the discussion at the last meeting on this, I had offered to make that 14 feet in the hopes that perhaps that tries to accommodate Marilee and also would be more satisfactory to the DRB.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions for the applicant? Or we want to start having our discussion. All right, so let's have our discussion. So, I mean, Jim, do you think your idea of the kind of raising up the walls? I mean, I don't mind the blind idea. I guess to me, I think
Michael,
I wouldn't require any of that.
Yeah, I think that certainly both parties have their concerns, and the blinds is more of an interior thing, which would probably be in some ways a more, I guess, sympathetic, solution to the, the screens. I mean, certainly I agree with you. Looking through all the screens is a lighter, airier kind of effect. But if you look at that elevation directly below it, there's a wall. And in looking at this elevation, what I was talking about would only be 2 of those 3 panels, not all 3 of them.
Okay. So kind of do like a step, almost like a stepped design almost kind of like what their walls, their privacy screen walls look like down below.
Right. That when you go around the corner, you still have a full, screen on that corner on both sides of the corner. Which, I agree with you. The neighbor could see through that to the view beyond. I don't know if they're considering that or not, but.
Jim, I'm not going to be voting, but I do recall from the last discussion that the applicant was, there is not a standard by the cluster, but they were asking and they were attempting to as closely follow the design of the deck that was approved. So this look is, as I recall from the presentation, and Mr. Glickstein, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, that was one of the considerations why it is set up in terms of the 3-foot wall. Because that's
what it mirrors what was approved on the other screen and porch, and it was the specific request of the HOA.
All right. Okay. So I was correct. That was my recollection. So we're talking about those little walls, but the HOA was trying to get some consistency because they have not adopted a standard. So they were trying to make it consistent with the one that was approved.
Right. And I think what we're trying to address is the issue of the neighbor, their bedroom looking directly into this rather than a parallel situation.
So, Michael, I have a question on that, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
So, when we're talking, I'm just stepping into this, and there's other people here who have had history with approving and working on this project. So I'm just a fresh set of eyes, and sorry if I'm hitting on something that you guys discussed and approved previously, but just bear with me. So, they both have, for the privacy portion on, it sounds like we're being asked to revisit that the privacy was a concern that wasn't addressed before. Did I get that right? That's part of the appeal, is that? Privacy is one of the line items. Did I understand that?
Correct. This is part of the affected party status is currently that. So technically, this is the de novo application, which means it's brand new. So we technically we have not made a determination yet, I guess is the proper way to look at it.
So I'm trying to understand how this is a new privacy issue, since we're dealing with the two existing decks that currently look at each other. And I could understand if privacy was overlooked if there was on a property an elevated deck and the property next door no elevated deck, and then someone wants to build an elevated deck, so now you're eye to eye with your neighbor. But in this situation, you have two decks that are already fully open to one another with views. I saw the photograph of a view from the bedroom and looking at the other person's patio, and that person would be on that patio and could look into the bedroom. So I'm having a hard time understanding what the privacy concern is. And when we talk about taking away some of the screening, it's for privacy. It's like, is it an issue of you're looking into your neighbor's area, which is that's what's happening right now anyways, or I don't understand what's being created to.
So I think the issue is that so yes, there's two existing decks, right? But the new proposed screen porch is 3 foot longer than the current deck that's there. So I think that implicates now a more direct angle of blocking view shed, increase of no privacy from if someone's standing kind of in that corner of the screened in porch, I guess, for lack of a better term. That's why I'm on the stance that if we shrink this thing to be 12 feet, we can I can motion to approve it. I think the applicant really wants to get that extra depth to have a little bit more usability in the space. So then we were trying to come up with maybe a different way to potentially provide some screening to try to eliminate it. But I think it's still, the issue is I think it still blocks the view shed of the neighbor, which, you know, it is an important view shed to the west, which is, you know, where the sun sets, and you know, it does have that issue. So I think that's kind of where the issue of the privacy and the length is, because of that extension of length.
Splash of water,
So,
yeah.
Okay, all right, that helps clarify. Thank you.
does anybody want to make a motion?
Could I offer also, I asked Richard, forgive me, Ziegler, is it, to go back through the filings for our property. And I'd just like to point out that adjacent to our deck on either end were two 50-foot maple trees that had huge canopies on them, to the point where it provided almost no light at all. And in addition, it obviously didn't provide any view past our home. They were taken down because thought to be somewhat dangerous. And we took two down, one on each end, because on the other end, the boroughs thought also that it was fairly dangerous. So for a long period of time from these homes, the tree line really provided a dense block from being able to see the far end of our community. And also, I would think, I've lived here for 20 years and I'm not positive, but I would have sworn that west was towards the front of our home, not in the back. So for sunsets, I think you run into, you know, our homes before you see the sunset. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, your house is faced north and south directly, right? So the argument is when you're out on your deck, you're looking out to your right. You know, if you're coming out on your deck, that is directly due west. So that is the argument that the affected party kind of had, and I'm, you know, in agreement with. So it's a unique situation. I don't think a screen porch is, you know, not doable. I think we can. I just think the size of it is what's impacting my thought right now. But I'm one board member. Once again, there's same concerns that I issued the first time this went through here. So it's not anything new to you all. So is there anyone on the board who wants to make a motion, move us through? All right, I'll throw one out there. I'm going to motion to approve the application, but with the following amendment, that the depth of the screen porch be reduced to 12 feet in line with the existing deck. I think that's the best case. The design can stay the exact same, but I think it'll help more fit the character of the area it's fitting in. That is my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that? All right. So all those in favor of the, yep, Jim?
Could you bring up the rear elevation of the screen porch just one last time?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, staff slide 40. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. In looking at this, it looks like the bay is off to one side. So the reduction back to the 12 feet Michael, that you're pointing out, only occurs in part of the room, not the whole thing. Where it goes back to the back wall of the house without the bay, it looks like it's, your suggestion is not making it unusable, I guess is the only point that I'm making here.
Well, the room is 15 feet wide, and you got about half of it. The center of the proposed room is about on the edge of the bay. So basically, it's going to make half of that room 9 feet deep, and it'll have 12 feet deep on the far end.
Would
right.
you guys?
I just wanted to point that out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Would you guys be open, just from a further discussion standpoint, would you guys want, just because I do think it will help, do you want to try to make it wider?
I think that impacts Ms. Miller worse than going out.
No, I'm talking about getting wider towards the other property, towards you. If we're looking at plan view to the right, you could conceivably go to the outside of the bay or center your roof on the middle of the bay. Right now, it is designed nicely where it's kind of that middle of that ridge is going to hit right into the corner of your one bay window. You could move that over to like the center of your bay window and then move kind of the whole deck over as well, and kind of encapsulate and make it wider. I'm just throwing an option out there if you're not completely happy with my motion and the current motion that's seconded and that we're having further discussion on. So I'm just trying to be amenable to you guys.
I'll have to think about it. I mean, we went through all those. Look, we thought we came up with a design that was workable. We thought it was within what should be permitted on this property. And I guess I'm just a little disappointed after it having been approved and now you're withdrawing the approval, in fact. So.
Okay.
I don't know what the recourse is, but I'm rather disappointed.
You can appeal our decision again,
Thank
and
you.
we can go back at it.
Thank you.
So there's a motion, there's a second. We had some further discussion. So all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any against the motion?
Nay.
All right, so I only have 2 votes at the moment. So I'm gonna have to do a roll call vote. Staff, for the record, who seconded my motion?
Sarah.
So
Yeah, after further discussion. That was.
So for the record, I think if you second the motion, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, if you second the motion, can you then vote against the motion? Or can you rescind your second?
You can absolutely vote against the motion if you second it.
Okay, all right. I just have never had it happen. All right, so there's a motion. We're voting at the moment, but I'm gonna do a roll call vote because I didn't hear everybody's vote. So A or nay, Sarah, are you in favor of the motion or against the motion?
Against.
All right, so we have a nay. John, in favor or against? 4. All right, Jim?
In favor.
In favor, okay. And then Bruce is abstaining, and then I'm in favor of the motion as well. So the motion will pass 3-1-1. All right, thank you guys. Sorry we couldn't come to a resolution that everyone would like. All right, I believe that's everything on tonight's agenda. Staff, correct me if I'm wrong.
That is everything. But I think LaShonda had something she wanted to mention.
I also have something I want to mention, so go ahead, LaShonda.
Just with our new appointments, just wanted to make sure that everybody is okay with their assignments, with their new assignments. If there are any concerns or if you need to be moved, just let me know and we can get you assigned to a different panel. Currently, we have Sarah on the red panel, John on the green panel, and Elena on the blue panel.
Okay. Yeah, I guess one point of clarification I would say is, and mainly, I don't know if Elena had said she wasn't going to be here tonight, but she may have not known. Same thing that Sarah was asking kind of prior to the meeting. Was
She
that
did. I got a chance to.
purple is full board?
Yeah, I got a chance to talk to her during the meeting. She said that she knew that tonight was the meeting, but she forgot to send an email, but she wouldn't be able to join us.
Okay. So the only thing I would say that if, she has a flexible, from a work situation, if she's on a 2-person panel, it obviously is a little bit of a, we obviously just let her know we need to make sure we have a heads up of if she cannot make it, because that could kind of jeopardize that panel moving forward if she has kind of an inflexible schedule. So just kind of keep that in mind. The thing I wanted to bring up was I met with, we had a great event last night put on by staff in the RA board to kind of put together all the chairs of all the committees. And we, went through some things together, kind of how we can help each other. And I think it went pretty well. And then we had kind of an open forum with some cluster presidents to kind of go over, kind of how they can, if they had any questions, if they had any suggestions for us, and kind of answer any questions. And I think it went well. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because we did a hybrid Zoom meeting, and I thought it worked, quite well. And I'd like to gauge the interest for full board only, to kind of move back to this in-person meeting and have a full board, but have a hybrid meeting. So members, board members, as well as members of RA could still attend virtually if so desired, but also we could have the meeting in person. And I was kind of getting a gauge of interest from the board members, especially now that we got some new board members, and still keeping panels virtually. I think that keeps them efficient, keeps them moving quickly. But the full board, just like tonight with the Tall Oaks application, it's so hard to look at those things, on a small little computer screen. It's helpful to have the applicant presenting, walking us through exactly what trees are being saved, what trees are being removed, and seeing that in person and having it up on the big screen in the conference center. It's been 2 years since we've done it, but when I was on the board, those 2 years ago, it was very helpful. So it's tonight. It just sometimes gets a little difficult on these more complicated applications. So I just wanted to kind of get a gauge of interest from my fellow board members of going kind of back in person for the full board. Now that we kind of have the hybrid meeting figured out, and RA is paying for Zoom, so we might as well use it. Any feelings on that?
I'd be interested in that. Where would the full board meeting meet at the RA offices?
Yeah, so they're right there, right over Sunrise Valley and Reston Parkway.
I drive past there every morning going down to get my grandboys and taking them to camp or school.
Exactly. Sarah, Jim, Bruce, any thoughts on that?
Be happy to.
Michael, I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
I was just saying that I'd be happy to.
Go ahead, Jim.
Michael, I think that I would be in favor of going back to in person. To your point, some of these larger plans and site plans and all that, I think just are easier to digest in person and comment on it. And I think that just being there in person, that's the way I'm used to working on these things.
I agree.
Michael, just to clarify, your suggestion was to make it hybrid.
Correct. So board members
for full board meetings.
For full board. So members could still attend virtually. So let's say you have a conflict and you can only get online, or you need to stay home, or you're uncomfortable with getting in a group of people, then we have the option that you can join virtually. We had board members who joined virtually yesterday for the event, and it worked well. And then also RA members could do the same thing where they sign in here just like they do now, or they could show up in person. So there would be kind of virtual or hybrid option for both.
Great, thank you. That's fine. My concern had always been that we not force anyone, whether they're staff or the applicants or the members, to meet in person if they were uncomfortable. So you're telling me now that our approach, that we can have an approach that we can meet everybody's needs.
Yeah, and because I think the hybrid, I'd never done it in person. I think it went really well. I mean, and Cam can kind of chime in. I mean, he was there. I thought it worked. I mean, we had panel members who were on Zoom. We had panel members in person. We had, questions coming from members that were all on Zoom in this instance. But I think it's potentially a little bit more work for staff. So don't hate me. But I think it's very beneficial to those bigger applications that we really need. And I foresee the future. We discussed a lot of projects that are coming up that if we're reviewing those, just at home, it's going to be tough. And so I really want to have that ability for the full board. So Cam, I don't know if you want to weigh in.
Clearly with any hybrid situation, the staff requirement is then in person. That there is no option to do that virtually with staff being able to host it. But it did work well, and we are most certainly happy to accommodate whatever the DRB would like to do in terms of conducting their meetings.
I appreciate that. And just for the record, Cam was a rock star on that meeting yesterday. His answers were flawless in my opinion. So I thought he did a great job. And so we're in good hands with staff. So I think that would be great. So I don't know what we need to do, staff. If August, if we can institute that, or if it's too late, if we need to wait till September. You tell me what you guys are comfortable with and getting to. I obviously don't know your guys' vacation schedules, and if maybe potentially a couple of you guys are out on vacation that week, and I don't want to put a burden on you all. So do you guys think August is too soon, or you want to do September? Or
I think we need to kind of do a little group meeting and gathering of the minds, especially since we may have already started sending out invitations for August's board meeting. Since let me suggest it this way. I don't think that you would want August's DRB meeting to be in person, since that would be probably where Vantage Hill would be coming back to the DRB. But there are other applications that are also coming before the DRB that are quite long in review. And so I think that meeting would be a very long meeting.
Okay, but I mean, Vantage Hill, though, is kind of an important one that I think seeing that one in person is kind of the point. And
you
honestly,
can try to make it work.
I guess, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but people, not that affected parties are less likely to show up, but I mean, they can still show up by Zoom, but I think it'll just it'll make it easier for us to kind of control the outcome of that. And yes, it may be a long meeting. And what other agenda items are on there besides Vantage Hill?
So
You don't have to tap your head.
The Vantage Hill and Lake Ann, possibly.
What about just a Lake Ann Fellowship House, specifically to the Fellowship House?
The redesign of the townhomes.
Okay, that we kind of did that one thing. We asked for all that additional information.
Correct.
Yeah. I think those are two big ones that would be great to have in person. I think that almost proves, that's almost my point of wanting to go back to in person, because there were so many things that were missing that.
Well, let
I think
us
it
look
would be
at
helpful.
let
Put
us
together
look
your
at it and-
schedules and see if it's possible.
Absolutely. And then the last final piece of that would be, or not of that, but my farewell gift is those of you that received an email from Christina about your conflict of interest, we need those back. So that would be Dan, Bruce, Michael Wood, and I believe, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that already.
Conflict of interest for what? I was sent something?
For serving on the DRB. We didn't have it on file, and so we need a new one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that would be Bruce, Michael, and Michael Wood.
I haven't gotten a email from Christina, so
I will re-forward it tonight before the evening is over.
awesome. You don't have to do it tonight, Cam, if you want to go to bed, but you can send
Already
it to me
done.
tomorrow. Okay,
See how quick that was?
Easy. Okay. Maybe I just missed it. Yeah, I still don't have it. All right. Anyways, we'll deal with that. So anyways, take a look at your schedules. Let us know, everybody. Thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. See you. Bye.
Aye.